forensic psychological evaluation and assessment. So the distinction between forensic and therapeutic evaluations is vast. I taught here at Alliant, I taught cognitive, personality, and forensic assessment courses. And it's a different orientation. I swear to goodness, I'm going to write a book someday. My background, actually, I had a forensic internship and a 2-year postdoc residency in neuropsych. In that forensic internship, coming from a clinical program, my brain did little flips in its brain pan because I came from a place of empathy and warm, touchy-feeliness and believing your client and meeting them where they were in unconditional positive regard. And I was slammed into this internship where you didn't trust your clients. You, in fact, believed that they were telling you lies. I think someone said that. You just accepted that the information that you were going to get was going to be in part false or at least minimized. I was working in the sex offender program. It was just an incredibly different experience from anything I'd ever experienced before. And I had, my dissertation was actually on theoretical orientations. Why? Because I wanted to get out of school. It was a quick and easy one. Myers-Briggs is fun. But I had really gotten into the theories behind things, understanding the theoretical underpinnings of how to conceptualize something. And here I was in an internship that conceptualized things much, much differently. So part of the rest of this class is my attempt to impart that to you guys. And maybe one of you will help me write a book someday. So the distinction between forensic and therapeutic evaluations, as I said, includes many, many different things. And this has actually been written in a number of different areas. I'm not sure where I got these from. I'm pretty sure, I thought it was Milton. It might be Milton. So scope. The scope of your practice is going to be including a number of different things, but in a therapeutic practice, it's really looking at the clinical aspects of things, whereas in a forensic practice, you're narrowing your scope. It's going to be defined by the referral question and the interactions in a fairly non-clinical nature oftentimes, especially with forensic assessment. Importance of the client's perspective. In a clinical setting, it's incredibly important. You want to know where your client's coming from. You want to meet them. Forensic, we kind of don't care. You know, we want to know what it is, what's their client perspective, but our information is going to not be governed by what the client tells us so much as collateral information, those police records, and everything else, right? Voluntariness. In clinical situations, oftentimes the person's coming to you and asking for help. In a forensic situation, forensic assessment, voluntariness is often out the door. These are probably mandated evaluations, and the person can participate or not, but if they don't participate, it might be more detrimental. So, you know, they don't really have the choice. Autonomy. Well, voluntary clients often have more autonomy than non-voluntary clients, and most of the forensic clients that we get are going to be non-voluntary. They're going to be mandated. So their autonomy is going to be difficult to gauge. Threats to validity. In clinical situations, I found the threats to validity are fairly minor. People want to give their best efforts because they want to see what's going on with them. In clinic or in forensic settings, there's always threats to validity, and that's why anytime you do an assessment, you include a symptom validity test, which we're going to spend the next part of the class on. Right. Relationship and dynamics is different. The relationship with your client in a clinical assessment, you really want to establish really good rapport and get in there. Whereas in a forensic setting, in a forensic assessment, you need to stay neutral. You don't want to be seen as buddy. You don't want the guy going back to his attorney and saying, oh yeah, the assessor, he was telling me about his family, and he seemed like a really nice guy, and he said everything's going to be okay. Why? Because it's your license that's on the line. Pace and setting. In clinical settings, we often have a little bit more time. Person can come 3 or 4 times. In a forensic setting, there's deadlines. We have to get things done quickly. So the distinctions can be broken down thusly. The reader in a clinical evaluation is often the client, but in a forensic evaluation, it's going to be the judge, jury, and attorney. So you're going to be writing in a completely different way. Privilege, where the clinical evaluation, it's often the client or the patient. It's often the court in the forensic evaluation. The sources of data, in a clinical, you often just have the patient self-report, you have the clinical interview. But in a forensic evaluation, you have to have a number of different sources. In fact, you can't really rely on just what the client says. Purpose, in clinical evaluations, it's supportive, it's diagnostic. Forensic, it's to assist the courts, to make a decision, to answer a question. The tone of the report should be empathetic and supportive in your clinical evaluations. You talk about how the person is suffering with something. Whereas in a forensic evaluation, you need to be scientific. You need to be objective and not biased. And what do you address in a clinical evaluation? Specific problems. But in a forensic evaluation, specific questions. And the report, in a clinical evaluation, it should be brief. In a forensic evaluation, it varies. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. But you do want to put as much detail as possible. Validity. Choosing your assessment instruments is important. There are 3 different classes of assessment instruments. There's your classic type of clinical assessment instruments would include what sort of things? MMPI, the WACE, the MCMI, the BDI, Beck depression. Are you depressed? Beck anxiety scale. All of these are clinical assessments, right? What about forensic assessment instruments? The hair, absolutely. Well, yes and no. The hair is more of a forensically relevant instrument. And the difference is a forensic assessment instrument is an instrument that answers a question. Predictive values of sex offender. Will this person be violent or not? Is this person competent to stand trial? A forensically relevant instrument helps inform. All malingering tests are forensically relevant. Hair is forensically relevant. Now, it does inform forensic assessments, but there is no question about, is this person a psychopath? That's not ever something that you're going to be asked to assess for a court. This breakdown comes from the American Board of Professional Psychology's ABF forensic, the forensic board under the. The process is important. Answer the question. First and foremost in any forensic evaluation, what is the question? What is the referral question? That's what it comes down to. So there are many different models for this. I believe it's Milton that has the Greenberg and Brodsky. Helbrun's has 38 principles. I'm not going to go through all of these. I went to a training with Dr. Hilbrun, very nice guy, who went through every single one of his principles. You could feel free to read it in your spare time. But if you're thinking about doing forensic assessments, I suggest laying an eye on these principles and keeping them in the back of your mind.